Hospitality is the essence of Middle Eastern culture. Abraham welcomed 3 passers-by washing their hands and feet, inviting them into his tent. There it was that the Lord spoke to Abraham and Sarah, promising the birth of Isaac. More than just opening his tent, Abraham offers the best to his guests, from water to refreshing dried fruit. Above all, it's the attitude that counts. As guests in his tent, we're even privy to some of his personal problems and dilemmas.
This problem with the shepherds of Lot that you see I think I have a solution. And my solution is I spoke to Lot yesterday. He was sitting in the tent, I think where you're sitting. And I said to him, we need a little space between us. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left. Is that fair?
Some of those bad shepherds actually stole the pita bread for our main meal. So Abraham is going to teach us how to bake our own, so we don't go hungry.
Now I'm not banging it or putting it on my palm. I slowly stretch it.
3 fingers. 3 fingers here. Stretch. And in just a few seconds, hopefully, you have a piece of pita. Everybody say pita.
Pita.
Okay, now afterwards, not before, but after it's been cooked, I want you to try by dipping your pita here into the olive oil and za'atar. If you remember, when Abraham sees the guests coming, he doesn't pick up the phone and call for catering. He tells Sarah, and he runs and gets meat, and what does she do? She takes 3 amounts of fine flour, 3 cakes of flour.
And we take it over here. Oop, quickly, quickly.
Now you really don't have to worry if there's a hole or two. What counts is how thin it is. Look at this one, a good one.
Cooking 101.
Oh, I think we get this one next. Yeah. You know, oh, this one.
Oh,
Ah.
It's okay, all the dirt burns off.
Whose is this?
Hey, you took my spot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Right.
Maybe just pass them to me.
Okay. Come right in.
Whose is this one? Oh, doing well.
Wow,
That looks like almost has
well
the stripes of a
done.
matzah. It's taken some savlanut, but now finally it's time for a Genesis land dinner.
This is baba ganoush. It's made out of eggplant and tahini, which is made from sesame seeds, ground down, and then we add water back to the powder. And the hyssop we like to use in many of our foods because it teaches you to be humble. Why is that? Because the actual hyssop plant is very short or very low, and it teaches you can have a very good flavour. It works very hard without being like a tall pine or tree. All of the dishes have different herbs and spices. The idea here is that we want to play with your palate so that you should feel as if you're a prince or a king at my table, because your tongue will tell you that you're not just getting a lot of one flavour, you're getting a lot of different flavours. And as such, then you must be an important person.
Abraham has served us a great meal, which we're about to feast upon. Look at the family behind me. But one thing I have to tell you, in Abraham's day, they didn't have forks and knives like this. So we're going to get rid of them, and we're going to eat the Middle Eastern way. Let's take a dip of that tasty hummus. Oh man, you don't know what you're missing.
Now, of course, we come to the main course, which today is chicken with silan, or what we call date honey. Now, why is that? Because we refer to the land as the land of milk and honey. But of course, we have to have a choice in every course, and here we have the kebabs.
That Abrahamic blessing is too much. After such a feast, I need some activity. Abraham offers to mold a clay camel, but issues a warning, as many in his day used this method to make household idols. Now, can you see the resemblance? No, don't worry. It's not a household idol.
He's getting his camel riding certificate because he was trained by Eliezer to ride a camel.
What this means is I can ride a camel anywhere in the world. This is the official camel license. You have to come to Genesis Land. Roots and Reflections is a program created to bring you the Bible, culture, and education from Israel. It is our desire to build you up in your faith, to bring you hope both now and in the future, and to share God's love with all of you. Call the number on your screen and partner with us as we seek to share the good news from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth. In Roots and Reflections, we move along the road to Jerusalem's eastern gate. Through this tunnel, one passes under Mount Scopus from the desert into Jerusalem. Our final stop is on the Mount of Olives at a friend's house overlooking the eastern gate. We're here with Tom Hess of the Jerusalem House of Prayer for All Nations, and we're standing right by the eastern gate behind us. It's an incredible view with an incredible person. Tom, shalom.
Shalom. We know that the eastern gate, in fact, East Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives and the eastern gate is where almost everything happened in the life of Yeshua when he was here in Jerusalem. We know that he lived in Bethany, right on this side of Mali Adumim, and that he was there with Lazarus, and he lived with Mary and Martha, and Lazarus was raised from the dead from there. And we know also in Bethphage, which is in the eastern gate, is where he got on his donkey on Palm Sunday, and he came down over the eastern peak of the Mount of Olives, which is on Bethphage, and he came down to here, and then he went down through the Golden Gate into Jerusalem. Also, according to the maps in history, the ashes of the red heifer were sacrificed on this property, or very, very close to this property. When you look at the maps, they were right in this area, and there was a two-tiered bridge that went from the upper part of the Mount of Olives over the valley to the Golden Gate. So this was the place of sacrifice. This was also the place where two books that I've read actually believe that the crucifixion took place on the Mount of Olives. The reason they believe that is because the only place you could see the veil of the temple being torn from was on the Mount of Olives, and this was the place of sacrifice. They say that you could not see the veil of the temple being torn from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You could not see it from the Garden Tomb or the, Golgotha, the traditional Protestant place. So many people believe that actually the crucifixion even took place here on the Mount of Olives.
It's incredible to think what Tom Hess has just said, because in Mark chapter 15, verse 37 and 38, it says, "And Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that, what did he see? The centurion was witness to the veil being torn from top to bottom, and more than likely was standing right here on the Mount of Olives facing the eastern gate." The altar of sacrifice was always on the eastern side of the tabernacle, or later the temple. Every reference in the Torah to acceptable sacrifice places it to the east. So it makes sense that the greatest sacrifice of all should have taken place outside the temple to the east. According to the Mishnah, the temple wall was lower on the eastern side, so that the priest could sprinkle the blood of the red heifer towards the Holy of Holies. It says, "All the walls there were high, save only the eastern wall, because the high priest that burns the red heifer and stands on the top of the Mount of Olives should be able to look directly into the entrance of the sanctuary when the blood is sprinkled." From the Mount of Olives, the centurion would have had a view of the veil being torn from top to bottom.
According to Zechariah, that living waters will flow out of Jerusalem, and that they will flow to the Western Sea, probably along the Tel Aviv Highway or something, Jerusalem-Tel Aviv Highway. There will be a river flowing to the Western Sea, but it also says that they will flow out of the Eastern Gate, and it will go down through the desert and go down into the Dead Sea, and the Dead Sea will become alive.